Hi everyone, my name's Kaitlin Michael and I am a Lensbaby ambassador, here today to teach you about the new Lensbaby Soft Focus Optic Swap Macro Kit. We're going to take a look at it today and show you some behind the scenes on how I use it in my macro photography. But before we get started, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I am a teacher by profession. I teach middle school ESL students, English as a second language, and I have a photography business on the side. So I am a hobby professional or professional hobbyist. There we go, a professional hobbyist. And I have been a Lensbaby ambassador for a year and a half. And if you have seen any of my work, you have heard me say that Lensbaby has transformed my photography art for the better, and I would not go back. If you'd like to follow me, you can find me on Instagram at kshadelphotos, or you can visit my website, www.kaitlinshadel.com. So what is in this kit anyway? Well, first, you're going to find the Composer Pro 2 and the Sweet 50 Optic. You will also find the Soft Focus 2 Optic, the aperture discs that are used with the Soft Focus, and you will find macro filters and a nice lens cloth, all packed inside this great carrying case. So today I'm going to go through and teach you a little bit about the Sweet 50 and the Soft Focus 2 optics, how I use them, and I'm going to show you how I used them in my backyard with some of the plants in my backyard. And then finally I'm going to show you some of my favorite macro photos that I've taken recently with both of these optics. So let's get started with the Soft Focus 2 optic. I love this optic. This is a great walk-around lens. You may have seen my video previously explaining how I use this and compared it to the Velvet 56 lens. But today we're going to talk about why I love it for macro photos. So the Soft Focus, it has this vintage feel. So when I want my images to feel timeless, I grab my Soft Focus 2. I also love this optic as opposed to the Sweet 50 when I want to have more of my image in focus throughout the photo, whereas we're going to talk later about the Sweet 50. The Sweet 50 has a different kind of focus where it's in the center. So it's I can't think of the word at the moment, but they're different, and you're going to see those differences. And I love both of them for different reasons. Something else I love about the Soft Focus optic is the option to use these aperture discs. And my absolute favorite aperture disc is this Sunburst one. And this you stick in, it's magnetic, and you pop it in the optic and it's ready to go. And I can stick this in my Composer Pro when I'm out taking pictures. It's there's this star-like bokeh that comes through. Or I found when I use it with macro, it gives this really nice texture in the background. So the star or the Sunburst is my favorite of these aperture discs to use. And when I want to take it out, I just pop off. Stuck it on there really hard. I pop off the cap at the end, and there's a magnet here, and I just use the magnet to take it out. The other aperture discs inside are different. They, I hope you can see them here. I hope it focuses on them. But they're circles surrounded by other circles. And these are used to help disperse that softness more evenly throughout the image. Otherwise, it's going to be softer on the edges as it moves into the middle, and these will help disperse that, as well as add some really fun bokeh to your backgrounds as well. The texture turns out really nice with these also. But like I said, my favorite is the Starburst, but that's my personal preference. Before we go any farther, I'd like to review a couple of things about the soft focus and what you will get in this kit. So first of all, on the Lensbaby website, it says that the soft focus, when it is shot at its brightest aperture, meaning the most wide open, the soft focus 2 creates an impressionistic image with subtle, sharp detail beneath. And you're really going to see that in my example photos to come. It is a 50mm optic, and it comes with the Composer Pro 2. If you buy it separately on the website, you can also get it as just the optic on its own, or you can get it in that fixed housing that you see that's solid black on the side over there. But the fixed housing is not available for individual sale like the Composer Pro 2 is. So if you want the fixed housing, it would come with the soft focus 2, or you can find a few other optics that come with it. The aperture settings on this optic, it goes from 2.5 all the way up to f22. It also has those magnetic drop-in aperture discs that I showed you. But what I really wanted to point out is that it has a minimum focusing distance of 15 inches. So when you don't have any macro filters on them, or when you're not using another technique, then you're going to be 15 inches away from your subject when you're trying to focus. And finally, it has the 46mm filter threads on it, and that's what your macro filters will fit into. Those filters will also fit on various of the edge optics. It will fit on the Sweet optics, and it will fit in the Sol 45. So yes, that is the soft focus 2. So now let's take a look at a behind the scenes of me using the soft focus 2 in my backyard with my hydrangea bush. So here I am in my backyard. I have stacked my 3 macro filters on the end of my soft focus 2, and as you can see, I am moving my camera back and forth to find the focus, more so than turning the focus ring on the actual lens. I love stacking those macro filters. You'll see me taking them on and off a lot. But here I started out with all 4 of them, and then I slowly started taking them off. And then I grabbed the aperture discs, and I put in my favorite one, that Starburst disc that I talked to you about already. And you're going to see with these photos, this one added some really cool texture to the background of these macro photos. There wasn't any backlight to make them shine like the bokeh, but it gave some nice texture. So let's take a look now at some of the images that I took during that behind the scenes video. You can see here the camera settings, but I used all 3 macro filters on this image. And look at that classic soft focus glow that you get when the aperture is at 2.8. It's just so soft and so lovely and timeless. In this image, you can see that now my aperture is at f4, and my macro filters, I just used 2 of them. So it's slightly farther away, or not as magnified quite as much, but you can still see that soft glow, and the aperture lets you kind of see a little bit more of the definition in the image. Here's another example, similar settings, actually the same settings as the first image, and you can see again that definition there, but also the softness that you get from the soft focus. In this image, I want you to notice on the edge, kind of on the right, you can see the texture that comes from that starburst or sunburst aperture disc, as well as how close you can get with the 3 macro filters stacked on top. Just look at the definition, the softness, the texture. Just take it all in. I love the example of this image right here. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at another method that I use when I shoot macro with my optics and my other lenses as well. I use a technique called reverse freelancing. Maybe you've heard of freelancing before. It's when you take your lens and you have it separate from your camera body and you just move it around to catch your focus, and it gives this really dreamy look to your images, and you can catch some really fun flares and light leaks whenever you do that as well. It's a very non-traditional way to take photos. Now there's another way, reverse freelancing is when you turn your lens around the opposite way and you do the same thing. But when you reverse your lens, it gives it a macro effect because the glass is pointed the other direction, and so now you can shoot macro with a regular lens when you reverse freelance. I had a photography teacher one time say, call this the poor man's macro lens, when you take it and flip it around and use it like this. I wouldn't say that's necessarily true because you can do it with very expensive lenses and you can do it with really cheap lenses. So it's just another method or technique to achieve macro photos. So something that I like to do to get even closer to my images when I reverse freelance is I like to put my macro filters, I have 2 of them stacked here, on the end of my lens. Oops. There we go. It sticks on this one sometimes. There we go. So now I have macro filters on the end, and I'm going to reverse freelance this way, and it just gives some extra magnification and allows you to get even closer to your subject than before. So yeah, you can move your lens around, your optic around, to achieve your focus this way. And you're going to see me doing that in some behind the scenes that's coming up next. But first, before I go any farther, I should add this disclaimer that if you're going to freelance, because your sensor is now exposed to the elements, just be aware of your surroundings, and if you're in a windy location or there's a lot of dust or sand that could blow around, just be very careful so that your sensor doesn't get really dirty, or even worse, so it doesn't get scratched. But I have many friends that also enjoy reverse freelancing or regular freelancing as well, and when we were discussing this, they were like, oh, I guess I've broken all those rules. So I just want to throw it out there as a disclaimer. Yes, people do it. You can do it, but just be careful, especially when you're starting out and trying to figure things out, trying to keep your sensor clean. So here I am in my backyard again, and I'm showing you reverse freelancing with my soft focus. As I said before, your lens is completely detached, and you just hold it against your camera lens, and you can wiggle it around a little bit if you would like to. I don't wiggle it as much when I reverse freelance as I do when I regular freelance, but I'd like you to notice how close you can get to the subject here. So on Lensbaby's website, it says that the soft focus, it focuses, the minimum focusing distance is 15 inches. But when you reverse free lens, you can get so much closer to your subject. There I'm showing you that I stacked all 3 macro filters on there, and I can get super close there, and I can't wait to show you those photos that I took of the orchid there with my reverse free lensing. So here we have the first of the images that I took reverse free lensed. This was just reverse free lensed. You can see the information on the side. I did not have any macro filters attached. But then here, look how much closer I can get reversed with all 3 macro filters. That's crazy. Here again, it was just reversed, no macro filters. But look how just soft those are. I love it. Now look how much closer I could get when it was reversed with those macro filters. It's going to be a pattern that you're going to see. But I just love how the background looks here. And again, here was another one. It was macro filters and reverse free lensed. And those petals were even smaller than the white ones in the previous image. Here we go, just reversed. But look at that definition there on those petals. And again, just reversed, different angle, same flower, but it just looks like angel wings. And then here we go, it's even closer again, and macro filters, reverse free lensed. So you have a lot of options here with these lenses. Here it is, reverse free lensed on its own, which actually that's a really good, I really like how that one is just reverse free lensed. But then we get even closer when we throw on those macro filters. And in a moment you're going to see the pullback of all of these, of using the images without macro filters. There we go. So no macro, no reverse free lens. This is just their regular focal length with the soft focus. And you can see like how small those little white petals are, and you can see just the distance that I really was from the rosebud, and in order to focus on the orchids I had to be a decent distance away, at least 15 inches. So next we're going to talk about the other lens that comes in this kit, the Sweet 50. And when you get your kit, the Sweet 50 will probably already be in the Composer Pro that comes with this kit. And if you want to swap it out, you just twist it and pop it out, and you can put the other Optic in if you are not familiar with the Optic swap system. But I'm going to talk about why I love the Sweet 50 for macro. Now, you may have read my blog, and in my blog I admitted that I don't love the Sweet 50 when it comes to regular photos. I use it and I like it, but I don't love it. I love the Sweet 50 when it comes to macro images. Some of my most favorite photos that I've taken recently were from my Sweet 50 with macro filters, or my Sweet 50 macro filters reverse free lensed. Why do I love it? Well, first let's talk about the Sweet 50. So according to Lensbaby's website, the Sweet 50 illuminates the essential details when used with the Composer Pro,
and it highlights your subject in a sharp, sweet spot of focus surrounded by dreamy blur. It is a 50mm optic, and it can work with the Composer Pro, or you see down in the corner the Spark 2.0. That's another housing that the Sweet 50 works with. It also, like the Soft Focus 2, has an aperture range of 2.5 all the way to 22, and it also has a minimum focusing distance of 15 inches and works with those 46mm threads, which is, like I said before, your macro filter is a 46mm filter, works with all the sweets, soft focus, Sol 45, and most of the edges.
So the Sweet 50 has a circular selective focus that you can move with the Composer Pro because it moves around. You can move that focus all over the frame and choose where exactly you want to focus your lens. So if you want it in the corner, you can move it so you're focusing on something in the corner, or down in the other corner, or off to the side on one of the edges. So that's something that's special about the Sweet optics in general. It's a circular selective focus, and I like to describe the bokeh as like a bubbly bokeh. And when it's moved around, sometimes it's like oblong. It's beautiful. But when it's put in macro, it is stunning in my opinion. The background can be very creamy, and it just has a nice texture to it that comes from the bokeh that you can only get from the Sweet optics, especially in this case the Sweet 50. And I have found when I reverse free lens, then there's this special movement to the texture, especially if there's like stems, if I'm photographing flowers and I can see their stems, or if there's some texture in the background, it just gives it a nice feel, and it almost in some cases can feel like a painting. But something else that I love about the Sweet 50 is that circular focus, wherever that is, it's gonna be sharp. When you nail the focus, it's gonna be this sharp circle. I mean, it blends, but your focus is gonna be great. I can't wait to show you some of those images that I took with the Sweet 50 with all the macro filters stacked on of some daisies. They are some of my most favorite photos that I've taken in the past like 2 months. So that's what the Sweet 50 can do when you stack some macro filters on there, as well as when you freelance. So let's take a look at some behind the scenes. I'll talk you through it, and then I will show you some photos that I took with this optic.
So in this behind the scenes, I show you how you can stack those macro filters on top of each other. You don't have to use just one. You can use 1, 2, 3, whatever you want to use. And they just easily fit in and screw together, and then you're good to go. So here you can see that circular focus that I have a little off center, and it has that dreamy blur that kind of shoots out from the sides. But look at the greens on the right side, how dreamy that is and smooth. That's the kind of smooth, creamy bokeh that I prefer, and that draws me to using this lens for macro. And here is another example. Both of these were used with just the macro, all 4 stacked together. you can see a little bit more of the drama that this Optic can create with creating a little bit of that. It's not a true swirl, but it creates a little bit more movement with the way the bokeh wants to form there in the left corner. So here's another behind the scenes. This time I'm reverse freelensing with that Sweet 50. It's done the same exact way as what I did with the Soft Focus 2, but I still wanted to show you a little bit of a behind the scenes so you can see again how I reverse freelance and how close I can get. Again, there I stacked those macro filters. I keep saying all 4, but there's only 3. I think it's because I keep seeing the 4 on the screen. There's only 3 macro filters that you can stack together. So this is what I was able to get when I reverse freelanced the Sweet 50 on the Orchid. I didn't have any macro filters attached, just reverse freelancing. You can see that right there. But then here, look at what happens when I reverse freelance with the macro filters, how much closer I can get to the flower. And here was just a reverse freelance of the hydrangeas. There's like a nice glow that comes from the bokeh as it goes out from the center. And here is reverse freelancing with those macro filters, and it's just, again, you can see the circular focus and that dreamy blur off to the side. And this one, I almost didn't believe that it was reverse freelanced, but I had to go back and I checked my data, and it was. But you can see that bokeh in the background, how it's has more texture. And here we have it reverse freelance with a macro filter, and it's so much closer, and that detail that you can get. And look how soft it is on the sides. And here we have that pull back again, and you can see a little bit more that circular focus in the center, and it's that dreamy, soft blur as it goes out from there. And that's just magnified when you do it in macro. So now I get to share some of my very favorite images that I've taken recently with my Sweet 50 and my Soft Focus 2. These images, I have felt really inspired by them, and some of them were taken at my house, and some of them were taken other places where I've just been very inspired. So this daisy, I just love that little bit of focus and how it's just so soft as it goes out from the Sweet 50. This one was just the Sweet 50 and macro filters, and it is exactly what I look for in my macro images as far as that soft blur. Here are a few more of those daisies, also taken with the Sweet 50 and macro filters. I think I want to get these images printed. I love them so much. And this image here, it is reverse freelance, and the example that I was talking about of that texture that you can get from the stems of the flowers. And here, I think I want to print these and make them like a series. They have such great focus in the middle at different places that I put the focus, and then that textured, that soft texture, it's almost like they were painted. And these images, I broke the rules. First of all, I told myself I wasn't going to include anything that didn't come in the kit, but I just love these images so much. I used the spark housing on these when I reverse freelanced, and the movement in that bokeh, it's just so creamy. I know I say that a lot, but it's creamy, and it just gives that dreamy look. And you'd never believe that a dead and dying mum that's ready for the trash could look so pretty. And here, this is with the soft focus 2, so it's the focus is more even throughout, but it's just softer, and it was the perfect choice for those eggs. I was so impressed with this image and how the lens picked up those little tiny droplets that are close to the middle of the flower on the petal, and that definition, it was with macro filters and reverse free lensed. And these tulips with the reverse free lensing, there's this beautiful light leak that comes in that just adds some definition to the photo. But look at how crisp you can see the petals of the tulip there. And that's with the soft focus. It's such a great and powerful lens. And here you can see all around some texture, and that was from the sunburst disc. So you don't see that bright and shiny bokeh in the shape of a star or like that sunburst because there isn't light behind it, but when it's used to add some texture, the texture it provides is just really neat. And finally, I added macro filters and reverse free lens to these hydrangeas. Those petals were very small. They were smaller than the white ones that you saw previously. I just love the color and how you can see the outlines of each petal and the details, but they're still soft and vintage and timeless.
So we've just talked about a lot of things. You've seen a lot of behind the scenes. You've seen various examples of mine of the images that I've taken recently with both of these optics in macro. If you have any questions about this kit, about anything that you saw in the video, or if you have any questions about Lensbaby in general, I would love to answer your questions. Please send me a message. You can find me on Instagram at kshadelphotos. Find me, let me know that you watched this video, and I'd love to chat Lensbaby with you. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.